Welcome to First. I'm Nichelle Poston along with Shirley Min and Mark Eichman. Delaware now has a focal point for African-American history in the state. Some of the displays are very personal. Others connect where we've been and perhaps where we are going as a culture.
The man who heads up Delaware Technical Community College reflects on the school's 50-year anniversary and looks ahead to what future growth students can expect.
Dover is a growing homeless issue. Some are pushing a solution that has become popular in reality TV. The tiny house could be the answer if the first group can be built. First, your public media news magazine starts now.
While tickets to the National Museum of African American History and Culture are hard to come by, there's a place with the same kind of history right here in Wilmington, thanks to the Delaware Historical Society. And this week's First Look will take you inside the Center for African American Heritage, which is now open to the public.
Delaware is a small state, but we have a rich history here.
Connie Cooper of the Delaware Historical Society is one of many who came together to work on several exhibits designed to tell Delaware's story.
When you read books about American history, in terms of general American history, often the Delaware story is not included. Yet Delaware's history is rich. It's fascinating. There's all sorts of interesting people, interesting stories.
African Americans are certainly among many of those interesting stories that Cheryl Gooch brings to life in the Journey to Freedom exhibit, which chronicles 377 years of the African American experience in Delaware from 1639 to now.
This is not a new story, but this is something that's often overlooked. It was here in Wilmington that the Beulah and Belton cases had a very significant impact on the landmark decision Brown versus Board of Education that led to the ending of legal segregation in public schools in the United States.
In addition to the role Delaware played in education, you'll also stumble upon some powerful images, such as the symbol of the kneeling African in the middle of the Declaration of Independence.
It's intended to provoke questions, encourage more discussion, and hopefully discovery. So I'm hoping that we will cultivate people's desire, young and old, to learn and relearn in some cases.
When I first walked in, I had an overwhelming feeling of seeing so many of us.
Beverly Roy, along with her brother James Roy and his wife, were impressed during their visit, but one exhibit hits close to home. That's because it included memorabilia donated by the Roy family.
Those are World War II medals from my dad. Specifically, one was from the European African Middle Expedition, the other one from the American campaign.
And the list goes on. Roy's father was a sharpshooter who served as a supply clerk in the military, driving a vehicle similar to the one pictured here. Roy also donated his mother's yearbook and pictures from his Newark neighborhood, and they're all on display at the museum.
For me, it was important to preserve the legacy of my parents, but more important, to try to preserve the legacy of the community from where I'm from.
In the museum, there's also a piece of Delaware history that many may not be aware of, and that's a story that focuses on peaches.
At one point, from about the 1830s through about 1900, Delaware was the nation's leading peach-producing state.
Then there's the story of the railroads in Delaware.
Well, African Americans did work on the railroads here in Delaware. The materials we have are from William Furrow. He was a World War I veteran. He served, of course, in the segregated forces, and then he came back and worked for the Pennsylvania Railroad for his career. He was active in the Union, and he was also active in civil rights activities.
His story and other exhibits all motivated some people to circle around the museum twice.
As much as there is in the exhibitions here, it's just the tip of the iceberg of Delaware history. There's so much to learn, so much to experience, so much to think about.
According to Scott Lair of the Delaware Historical Society, $7 million of renovations was well spent. making this new attraction a perfect addition to the arts theme in Wilmington's downtown district.
We bring that cultural aspect, the cultural resource, along with the Grand, the Queen, and Christina Cultural Arts Center. We give people reason to come down here to visit a museum, take in a show, eat dinner, perhaps consider living downtown, the urban experience. We're just part of that rich mix that's going to make downtown very successful, the revitalization of downtown very successful.
The Delaware Historical Society, which preserves and presents pieces of Delaware history, has been around since 1864. The renovated space includes about 9 sections dedicated to African Americans and about 6 sections with themes that are important to the state of Delaware.
And there was a bit of a power struggle about getting this thing built, about where it would be placed.
Yes, some Delawareans felt the museum deserved to be in a residential space, but former Mayor Jim Baker was very supportive of the Delaware Historical Society taking on the responsibility to present the African American experience here in Delaware.
And speaking of Mayor Baker, he's sort of an amateur historian of his own, in addition to being mayor for 3 terms. He's contributed somewhat to the museum?
Yes, Baker donated his large, extensive collection of album covers from black jazz musicians, including one from Wilmington's own Clifford Brown.
We'll have to check it out. Thanks again, Michelle. You can get a glimpse of the story again by going to our website, newsworks.org/Delaware.
Coming up on First, these are tiny houses. They just might be a solution to a growing homeless issue in Dover. And there's an experience in Middletown where you supply creativity and they'll give you everything else. 50 years ago, the state legislature gave the green light to create Delaware Technical Community College. And since then, Delaware Tech has provided tens of thousands of people access to an affordable and high-quality education and graduated more than 48,000 people. Here with us today is Dr. Mark Brainerd. Hi, President of Delaware Tech. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
You know, college tuition is sort of a hot topic in the news. A lot of students graduating with hundreds of thousands of dollars of tuition in debt.
Right.
And so, have you seen an uptick in enrollment in community at Delaware Tech and in community colleges across the board as a result of that?
Well, nationally, there's been a flattening of enrollment, and in fact, some community colleges have had enrollment go down. And over the last couple of years, we've actually ticked down a little bit, but what you have to remember is we've also been awarding more associate degrees since 2011. During the past 5 years, there's been a real emphasis by everyone on our team to give students the support they need to graduate and complete. So when all those programs go into effect, we start graduating more students, which means our enrollment will flatten out. But to your point, this year our enrollment is up around 4%.
Okay.
So that's a good news item. People are seeing the value in community college. It's affordable, it's accessible. And last year, almost 70% of our graduates graduated debt-free.
Wow.
So
that's a big deal.
It is a big deal for Delaware families to get a head start on that.
So is there a program, we were talking about it, a seed scholarship program.
Right.
Tell me about that.
Well, in 2005, Senator McDowell and the General Assembly led with Governor Minner the implementation of the seed scholarship program. And it essentially said that any graduate of any Delaware high school who comes out with a 2.5 GPA, stayed out of trouble, did not have a criminal record, can go to Delaware Tech or the University of Delaware and get an associate's degree for free. That was 2005. It's been 11 years now that the program's been in effect, and it's great because, as you know, President Obama came out a year or so ago and talked about the whole idea of free community college nationally, and in Delaware, over 7,000 students have already benefited from the SEED scholarship program through some direct benefit, and they're out in the workplace or pursuing a higher degree thanks to the SEED scholarship program.
It's a great resource.
Yes.
You know, part of why you're here is the 50th anniversary of Delaware Tech. So what do you think the college has done right for it to have hit this 50-year milestone?
Community colleges were created to provide a high-quality workforce for local business, industry, and employers. Basically to meet the need that other four-year traditional research-based universities weren't meeting. And during the mid-'60s when Delaware Tech was created, the logo was a job for every graduate and a graduate for every job. And it was really this workforce issue that was the primary mission of the community college. And when you talk to folks from other states, one of the things that they say about Delaware Tech is we have remained focused on that mission like a laser. And if you talk to any one of our faculty or administrators or staff, they know that our job is to connect Delawareans with jobs. And our programs remain focused on that, credit and non-credit. We are highly engaged with the business community. We listen, we learn, and then we adapt and try to stay not only in touch with their needs, but anticipate their needs and provide the workforce that they're going to need.
So there are ongoing conversations with experts in the industry about what they need and where you can...
Ongoing.
Kind of
every single one
that.
of our programs, we have over 100 programs college-wide. Every single one of our credit programs and many of our non-credit programs have advisory committees. And the advisory committees are comprised of experts in the field, the businesses and the higher ed experts that really need to tell us what our graduates need to know and what they need to be able to do when they graduate. So to say that we have a relationship with the business community kind of understates it.
Right.
We have an ongoing conversation with the business community so that we really know what our graduates need to be able to do when they graduate and go work for our local companies.
And that being said, you know, there are a lot of new initiatives underway at Delaware Tech, one of them being that Bachelor of Science in Nursing degree.
Correct.
Tell me about that, because that is kind of a big deal as well.
That's a huge deal, and it's a perfect example of how this ongoing conversation with employers in that sector dictated what we did and how we responded to that. You know, we've been getting indications from the acute care facilities in Delaware, the hospitals, that the bachelor's degree in nursing is becoming a preferred credential.
Right.
And many of the large hospitals are now magnet hospitals, and that was a way to designate hospitals that really focused on improving patient outcomes. And one of the requirements of being a magnet hospital is that 80% of their direct care nurses and managers have to have a BSN credential.
Right.
So while there's no stated preference for a BSN in Delaware, and there hasn't been, what happens is when certain departments are lagging in that 80%, they really have a preference to hire BSN credentialed nurses. So we really had to take a hard look at that, and really the workforce is driving us to adapt. And Delaware Tech provides more nurses for the local workforce than the other institutions combined. So it was a mission-driven decision to pursue a BSN, and to your point, it's historic. We're the only community college in the region to start the BSN. There's about 30 nationally in maybe 9 or 10 different states, but this is all workforce driven. This is what our employers are telling us they need, not just tomorrow, but years down the road. And we've adapted by creating the BSN, and we're accepting our first class in January of 2017.
Very exciting
Yes,
stuff.
it is.
Okay, well, we are out of time. Dr. Mark Brainerd, the 5th president of the Delaware Technical Community College. Thank you so much for being here.
Want to see my story on the African American exhibit at the Delaware Historical Society again? Well, go to WHYY.org/first. Past shows are there as well. Check it out.
The tiny home movement is growing in popularity across the country. Tiny living typically is about downsizing and living simply. But 2 Dover women think tiny homes could be the answer to solving Delaware's growing homeless problem. This tiny home measures 10 by 20 feet. That's 200 square feet of living space total. Tiny indeed. But Sue Harris says giving someone with nothing 200 square feet to call his own can make all the difference.
There was such a dire need for the next step in getting out of the homeless cycle, and that was affordable housing and the need for somewhere for these folks to be able to transition to after they've come out of the shelter. Section 8 housing has a waiting list that's over 3 years long that I don't even think they're taking names anymore.
So she and friend Kathy Copera started Port Hope, Delaware in February, a nonprofit with an alternative approach to housing. Their idea? Tiny homes for the homeless. Harris believes tiny living will put a stop to the getting help, getting a job, can't find a home, wind up back in the streets cycle she's all too familiar with through her work with the Dover Interfaith Mission, a homeless shelter.
Housing isn't the only answer, but without housing, all the other problems that are solved kind of fall behind the wayside if you end up back in the street again. So it is a huge part of the puzzle.
Partnering with Victory Church in Dover, the pilot plan calls for 15 tiny homes for 15 people to start, like this one, equipped with a living space, pull-out bed, bathroom, kitchen, and utilities.
We would have gardens and fruit trees and berry bushes and rain catchment systems and solar panels, we're hoping, to make it as self-sufficient and self-reliant as it possibly can.
The micro-homes would sit on land donated by the church and be named Village of Victory. Apropos, since they're teaming up with Victory Church, which has a robust homeless ministry of its own. The church prepares and feeds 150 meals for the homeless every day. And Victory Over Chronic Homelessness for just $12,000 a pop. That's how much Harris estimates it'll cost to build one tiny home with donated lumber and help from volunteers.
Each one of these units can be built for what it might cost for one hospital stay for pneumonia that a lot of these folks in the streets end up with.
Each year, the Homeless Planning Council of Delaware conducts a one-night count of the homeless in the state, a snapshot of what the problem looks like in Delaware. In 2015, the nonprofit found 950 people experienced homelessness in the state, 151 in Kent County. In 2016, that number grew to more than 1,000 in Delaware, with 188 in Kent County.
We can, in Delaware, really get a handle on this. We've got 3 counties. We can start with Kent County and spread out.
Some zoning and septic issues have delayed the project for now, but Sue Harris says if she can get things up and running again, this stretch of land is where she would like to put all 15 tiny homes when all is said and done.
But some neighbors have started a no tiny homes movement, posting signs in their yards. I knocked on some of their doors, but no one would speak with me or answered.
They think we're going to be bringing in, murderers and rapists and all those things that maybe the stereotype of homeless people are.
But Harris says anyone being considered for the village would undergo a background check, and it would be an alcohol and drug-free environment.
And we'll know everything about these guys. We'll know which are the best fits, who will fit in a community situation like this, and who will cooperate with each other. Anyone causing trouble will, as they say, be voted off the island.
Harris says neighbors were also upset that she nor Appling gave them a heads up beforehand. She apologized for that, but says plans were leaked before they were ready to go public.
It's an excellent idea. They're trying to put people into place.
Alexis Sims is homeless. The 21-year-old suffers from lupus and recently got out of an abusive relationship. The autoimmune disease robbed Sims of her vision, causes joint pain, and damaged her skin. She's not eligible for a tiny home because she has her 2-year-old and her mom with her, plus a baby on the way. They're all homeless, victims of bad circumstances. Appling and Sims have gone through the proper channels to find her a place to live, but to no avail.
We took her down to city council. She pled her case in front of the entire city council, the mayor, and we thought, well, somebody's going to do something. When nothing happened, I said, hey, I'm going to go buy you an RV and we'll put you back here in the back of the church. And you can stay in there until we find you a place, and so that's what we did.
Now the church is in trouble. Kent County issued a zoning violation to Victory Church for setting up a commercial recreational campground. Now they're being fined $100 a day.
We're people. We're humans. We eat like regular people. We breathe like regular people. Some people look at us as a disease or something because we're homeless. We're regular people. And just as like everybody else want a warm place to stay, so do we.
Everybody wants these guys to take care of themselves. Well, we want to set up a system that they can.
Sue Harris with Port Hope of Delaware says she would like to charge $300 a month for rent, but says someone could work off the rent and chores if it's not manageable right away. And again, the tiny homes would be single occupancy, so that means one person per tiny home. Now, this doesn't solve the homelessness problem, but it is trying to move the needle in the right direction.
Well, has this been done successfully, Shirley, anywhere else?
It has. Tiny house villages have popped up across the country: Nashville, Portland, Seattle, Dallas. The list is really growing. It is becoming a national movement to address what advocates are saying is a lack of affordable housing.
And what about efforts? Have efforts been made to smooth things over with neighbors against the idea?
You know, there was a meeting this week. We haven't touched base with everyone just yet, but we are going to follow up. They wanted to meet with the neighbors, go over the plans, sort of lay to rest some of the bad information going around. And so they really want to just get the most accurate information about the project out there.
Okay, well, we'll follow up with all involved after the meeting online at newsworks.org/Delaware. Thanks, Shirley.
Art can be an expensive hobby. Think about what it takes to do painting or ceramics. Imagine what goes into fused glass or even tie-dye. What if there was a place you could go that had everything you needed to create whatever you want? First Experience introduces you to the man behind Your Creation Station in Middletown. Just bring your creativity. They have everything else.
My name's Steve Datz, and I own Your Creation Station. We're a paint-your-own pottery studio. We're more like we're becoming a walk-in art studio. Walk in, pick the project you'd like to work on, and then start. We'll do pretty much anything. We concentrate on paint-your-own pottery is the bulk of it. I'm a potter myself, so that's how we started, and that's the main focus. Right from like first grade, all through elementary school, junior high school, and high school, I had clay. So I was just exposed to it very early on and loved it. I got through high school playing football and making pottery. We get all ages come in, from very young babies whose hands and feet will press into clay. I have one customer I'm thinking about, I haven't seen her in a while, but she was in her late 90s. And she would bring her great-granddaughters in and do projects and stuff. But it's really for everybody. As long as you're okay with your 3-year-old painting something, I am too. It's really a very family-oriented kind of thing. This store kind of grew itself. I mean, my idea was, you know, pottery and then maybe have some other stuff here and there, but I didn't know what the other stuff was going to be. It was really been dictated more or less by the customers coming in and saying, hey, we'd like to kind of do this. We get a lot of people come in saying, I'm not an artist, I'll never be able to do this, and they walk out with the most spectacular things. So it's neat to be able to see in any age. I mean, you see it in kids, you see it in adults. Something they thought that was beyond their reach really is within their reach. And you didn't have to reach very far to get it. And it's kind of neat to see that in people. There's certainly a financial aspect to it, but that's not the biggest reward with having a store like this. I mean, people like it, have embraced it. It brings back childhood for some people. I mean, everybody comes in and says, oh, when I was a kid, we did it, and I did too. These kinds of places don't really exist anymore. This isn't really like work. I mean, I listen to my friends talk about sitting in the meetings and all the corporate this and that, and I tell them, oh, geez, I gotta go, I'm gonna be making 60 tie-dyes today out, I'll sit out in the sun, maybe under a canopy, with the breeze. It's really a one-of-a-kind place.
There are lots of things to do at the Creation Station in Middletown, and they host lots of special events. You can find out more when you visit them on the web at yourcreationstation.com.
John Carney and Colin Bonini will face off Friday morning, October 28th at Widener University's Delaware Law School. The debate is live on WDEL at 8 a.m. and it will be broadcast on WHYY-TV at 5 p.m. Friday and during our regular first time slots throughout the weekend.
That is first for this week. We thank you for watching. For Mark Eichman and Shirley Min, I'm Nichelle Polston. Have a great week and see you at the debate.
We're a little more than halfway through this week's First, so maybe we should stop for a snack. No prepackaged goodies here, though. Instead, we have another idea. Our partners at Delaware Today magazine piqued our interest about the age-old practice of foraging. We decided to go on a hunt to find wild foods growing all around us, and we found the perfect place to do it.
Hi, I'm Tim Mounts. I'm an educator, farmer, and forager. I started eating stuff in the woods when I was a kid. Foraging has been around since humans have walked upright. We and animals forage every day. It's how we found food before we had agriculture. My family were always big into the outdoors and going out and kind of being naturalist and phenologist and seeing when things were happening and what was going on. And so it's been in my family for a long time. My grandfather taught me how to hunt mushrooms. We're in northern Delaware at winter tour. My wife works and we live, and we are in a mixed deciduous forest. We're looking for things that grow in associations, and that's how we kind of find the things that we're looking for. Right, yeah, this is garlic mustard. It's part of the mustard family. The seeds you can actually make mustard out of. And the leaves, we make dips out of them. We eat them raw on sandwiches. Fall here in northern Delaware and southern Pennsylvania is one of the best times to be foraging. We get tropical storms and hurricanes that bring needed water to this area. And once the rain comes and then the temperature drops, the mushrooms just explode out of the soil. This is a really good stand of chanterelles in the summertime. So it's one of the longest mushrooms that come out of the ground here. Season can last about a month. I think the popularity of foraging and coming back is just part of the local food movement. Sometimes you come out and you come out of your door and you find stuff, and then sometimes you don't find anything. But there's always something to eat. You have to learn from somebody that knows what they're doing. You can't just come out here and eat a mushroom, because you could really end up dead doing that real fast. So, I tell people that want to get into foraging to start with easier things and smaller things, and wait till they can take a class on mushrooms, or walk with somebody that really knows what they're doing.
A special thanks to Winterter, who toured the gardens before and had really no idea that there were so many edible plants growing there. Roger Morris of Delaware Today magazine knows a thing or two about foraging, and he joins us now. Wild Man is your story of Chef McGregor Mann, who's also a forager. What really motivated Chef Mann to start looking for wild foods and incorporating them?
It's an outgrowth of the farm-to-table movement, and it's part of what everyone likes to call authenticity these days. And many people, including myself, when we were growing up in the country, we foraged for berries, nuts, roots, all sorts of things, not as the primary source of your food, but to give it extra textures, to give it extra flavors. And so this is part of that movement, and that's what McGregor Mann's doing.
So if somebody's inspired by your piece, by Chef McGregor, how did they get started? How do you start incorporating this?
You probably would have to get a good book on it, but basically the easiest thing to do is to eat weeds. You can eat dandelion, you can eat nettles when they're young, you can eat morels if you're going to go for mushrooms. So there's a wide variety of things you can do without killing yourself.
That's the goal, right? Eat wild, but don't kill yourself. Roger Morris writes about the pleasures of foraging in this month's Delaware Today magazine. You can read more at delawaretoday.com. Bon appetit.
For over 20 years, Anna Biggs has managed to fuse her love of painting, sculpting, and nature into beautiful jewelry. Anna began as a painter, but it was a challenge from a friend that started her on the path to making jewelry. This week's first experience takes us to Anna's Wilmington studio.
My name's Anna Biggs, and I'm a jewelry artist. I'm a jeweler, but Truthfully, I carve all of the elements in my jewelry, whether it's a charm in a necklace or part of a pendant. They're my sculptures. It's basically sculpture to wear. I consider myself a sculptor. A friend of mine, she said, hey, Max and I are getting married. We want you to do our wedding bands. He said, I don't know the first thing. She's like, well, you're a smart lady. You have 6 months. Figure it out. So I started carving, and I went back and got a second degree at the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York for the mechanics of jewelry. My carving style is that I will make a whole bunch of sketches. And then from those sketches, not all of them are going to be made into models. Not all the models are going to work. When I was a child, I learned about the Eskimos and how they believe the spirit of the sculpture is within the piece already. And so I really believe that as things morph and change, I'm like, oh, that might not have been in the drawing, but I'm like, that's good. I like that. You know, I don't try and control the wax. I'm more like, watch it develop. I let the spirit of the thing come out. That's how I carve. You know, I really want it to be a kind of a living thing. I want it to have a lot of, energy, excitement. My style has moved forward and evolved in the sense of trying to make something that's classic with a twist. My jewelry has always been influenced by architecture, nature, animals. I really want to make a piece that can be passed for generations. It will last 100, hopefully 100 plus years. It'll be classic enough to be able to pass generations. That's my hope. That's my desire. I get people come back all the time and they're like, oh, I wear your earrings all the time. I love hearing from them. I love interacting with them. Designing the next collection, it's carving those pieces. That to me is the very best. It's that discovery moment, seeing what will come out of the wax as I carve it. Every piece is like my best favorite piece until I make my new next favorite piece. That moment of like creation, like it's like a child, it's like giving birth. It's like, wow, look at this amazing thing, you know?
Art runs in Anna's family, Sewell Biggs. The name on the Biggs Museum in Dover is Anna's cousin. The Hagley Craft Fair on October 15th and 16th is the next time where you can find Anna's work. Learn more at annabiggsdesigns.com.
And next week on First, an underwater power line from New Jersey to Delaware is on hold after Delaware leaders objected to the cost to ratepayers. And we'll talk to the Republican candidate for Congress, Hans Riegel.
That is First for this week. We thank you for watching. For Nichelle Polston and Mark Eichman, I'm Shirley Min. Have a great week.
Hen of the woods looks like a chicken sitting in the woods, but chicken of the woods is bright orange, also called a sulfur mushroom because of the color, and that tastes exactly like chicken. Texture, taste, everything. I've had chicken nuggets, I've had pulled chicken sandwiches made out of it, General Tso's chicken of the woods tacos.
Welcome to First. I'm Mark Eichman along with Shirley Min and Nichelle Polston. It's been 4 years since Sandy ripped apart the Jersey Shore, and its impact is still being felt in Delaware.
October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Preventing cancer is important, but also living a healthy life post-treatment is also important.
And we wrap up our Veterans Coming Home series with a report on a civilian turned soldier who wanted to give back to his community. Plus,